evening, and thanks for being here at the Right Side Podcast, the Livingston County Republican Party's podcast that allows the Republicans in the county to get their side out, unedited and uncensored. My name's Deb Drick, and I am the chair of the Livingston County Republican Party. And tonight, joining me is Carolyn Henry, who is our new Livingston County Prosecutor, just not quite 90 days yet. She's new to that role, but she's certainly not new to being an attorney or even a prosecutor here. So we'll let her talk to you. But Carolyn's kicking off a series that we'll be doing here. Basically, meet your county elected. We're going to have all the county electeds here. We're going to invite them all, and if they can come, just to tell you who they are, what they do, and why they do it, where they came from, what their background is, just so you get to know the people that you're voting for in the county every month, and what they do and who they are. So welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for being on. Just can you start off by talking about your background? What's your background? What kind of prepped you to be an attorney? Give us your history here.
Sure. I don't know if anything ever preps you to be an attorney. I think it's one of those professions that once you're in it, you sometimes second guess and say, what the heck was I thinking? But I'm actually very, very proud of the profession that I've chosen. I go back, a lot of times people ask if there were attorneys in our family, if you're just kind of taking over for somebody in the family. I will say in my family, I am the one and only attorney. So, holidays and gatherings are always very interesting because you then become the family attorney. So everybody always asks you the question, hey, I signed this contract, or I gave this money, how do I get it back? Or, I got in some trouble. What am I supposed to do? So, those are always interesting family gatherings. But I think just a little bit about myself. I've grown up in Livingston County my whole entire life. So I come from a family of 6 kids, and my mom and dad were very busy raising us. There were 3 girls, 3 boys. We grew up in the Tyrone Township area. So we went to elementary school at Linden Elementary.
Okay.
And then for high school, I graduated from Powers Catholic High School.
Okay.
We did not graduate from the new Powers Catholic. We were at the old Powers Catholic High School. So since the time that I've attended Powers Catholic, they bought the Michigan School of Deaf, and they had refurbished that school, and it's absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. So I'm very proud of my alma mater of Powers Catholic High School, who just happened to win a state championship this past weekend in hockey. So very proud moment for us.
Go what? What are they? The what?
Chargers.
Go
the Powers
Chargers. Okay.
Yes.
Go
yes.
Chargers.
Absolutely. Yes. And so then after some many college years, I attended law school at Cooley Law School. At the time, I lived for a period of time in our family home in Tyrone Township, and then moved to Brighton. During that time, I had clerked for Judge Pickerainen during my years of attending law school, and that was probably some of my best years as a law clerk. We oftentimes reminisce on those years of doing small claims, and I would have to come and gather everybody in the courtroom, just gather the witnesses in the courtroom. But I tell you, my years as a law clerk, I sure did learn a lot about the law, made a lot of wonderful contacts with many great people in Livingston County. And after my time as a law clerk for Judge Pickerainen, I had then gone to work with Jim Buttry and Tim Livingston and Paul DeCock. I worked in that office for many years with some of those familiar names. Learned so much.
I'll bet. That's some institutional knowledge right there, and a lot of experience.
Yeah, I tell you, just not just in the law, but they were very kind to my family. When you are a working mom, oftentimes you really rely on a lot of the people that you work with, and so my kids would come to court, my kids would come to the office. They learned a whole lot. And, I am just so fortunate to have the people that I worked with at the Buttry Law Firm for so many years. They were wonderful mentors that I had over the years.
Okay, we have to take a real quick break and do some technical checking, but we'll be right back with Carolyn Henry. Hang on. Okay, back and all the technical stuff fixed. So thanks for staying with us for just that minute. So, Carolyn. So Carolyn was just telling us about her background. She grew up in this area and was worked for the public defender's office. Um, Tim Livingston, Paul DeCock, and Jim Buttry, just tons and tons of experience. Great mentors. What better mentors could you have? I don't know that they exist. So tell us then, how did you get from the defense side to the prosecutor side? That's a big leap, isn't it?
Sure. Not a huge leap. I would say a lot of people ask me about that quite often, especially when you run for office. They say, gosh, wouldn't it be real hard to go from being a defense attorney to being a prosecutor? And it really isn't as hard as people would think it would be. We all practice law. We all went to law school. And my ultimate goal was always to serve my community in some way. I've always enjoyed politics from day one. And I will say, during my time when I was just a general practice attorney in working with the Buttry Law Firm, I had also run for Howell Township, for the Howell Township Board. And I was successful in my Howell Township bid as well. So I sat on the Howell Township Board for many years. And I think that's really what piqued my interest in just kind of expanding my interest in going to a countywide race, and then also serving my community as a prosecutor. So I had done some small prosecution cases for Howell Township as well when I was starting out my general practice business. So I think that might have been maybe what started my fire for serving the community in that regard. But I think just serving the community as a prosecutor and growing up in this community, we have been so fortunate to live in such a safe community for many, many years. And I never wanted to lose sight of that. And I always wanted that to continue. And that's always been at the forefront of what my goals have been is, even when we were growing up, if we went to bed and we didn't lock our front doors, we could still have a very restful night's sleep. Sure. And, I'm not going to encourage anybody to not lock their doors or anything, but, we are still so fortunate to live in such a safe community. And a large part of that is because of the principles and the tough on crime aspect that we serve in our office. And I've continued that under my previous elected prosecutor, David Reeder, who I served as chief assistant for.
Okay.
Yep. So that was, we were always, he always had a motto: do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. And really just in general, it was always make sure we live in a very safe community, protect our families, protect our businesses. It's been such a lovely community to live in for so many years. It's been great to raise my family here. I have two boys that are 20 and 23. But, we've always been fortunate enough to live in this community. I've raised them both in Livingston County. And, I think hopefully my love of Livingston County has rubbed off on them over the years. And I think it has. I think, when we're attending the Fantasy of Lights parades and we're going to the farmers markets, and I think just in general, it's just such a great community to live in. And I feel so fortunate to serve in the position that I do.
Awesome. Awesome. So I just want to tell those who are watching, you can see here's Bob Kittredge chiming in. Good evening, friends. And I just want to let you know, feel free in the comment box to, if you have questions for Carolyn or anybody else the rest of this episode, please post them and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Good evening, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
So so then let me go back to Carolyn here. So tell me about, since you've started in January, what changes have you made, staffing or whatnot, that what's different now that you're there than when he'll always be Judge Reeder. When Dave Reeder was there.
Yeah. Same thing. We've always, I've always called him Judge Reeder because, habits they just are very hard to get over. So he's always been Judge Reeder to me, Prosecutor Reeder for many, many years. So I didn't have to really change a whole lot. He really, when we started our administration, he set the office up so wonderfully. I was so fortunate that he helped me transition to my position very seamlessly. So as far as any big changes that were made. We really worked together on our policies and procedures. He really gave me a lot of input when we started our administration. And our ultimate goal, as he knows, was certainly to have me sit as prosecutor. And he did not hide that fact that he always wanted to see me when he retired as the prosecutor for Livingston County. So I am so fortunate to have served as his chief assistant for so many years. Some of the changes that were made just during the time when David was starting to retire, we did have a couple of our assistant prosecutors decided to take positions at the Attorney General's office. No negativity with anybody going to those positions. We don't fault them. We all still have a wonderful relationship with those attorneys that had left. The Attorney General pays more money. And so that was hard to see them leave, but certainly understanding. And then one of the bigger changes that we made was obviously with David retiring and myself taking the prosecutor position, I had to appoint a chief assistant. And so my chief assistant is Christina Richards, who has served as an assistant prosecutor when David and I started our administration.
Okay.
And Christina is just such a wonderful addition as a supervisor and administrator as chief assistant for our office. She has so many years of experience. She started out in Miami-Dade County in Florida. So she had been a prosecutor there. She then went to go work in Muskegon County, worked in Muskegon County for a number of years, then went to Ingham County, worked in Ingham County as a prosecutor,
Wow.
and then joined our administration. She handled a lot of child victim cases. So some of her cases were very sensitive in nature. And she just does such a wonderful job in the courtrooms in being a voice for victims in general, but especially for those tougher cases where you do have the child victim cases. She is an absolutely amazing prosecutor. When you see her, watch her in the courtroom. She's a great mentor to some of the newer attorneys that we have in the office as well. So I'm so fortunate that she agreed to be my chief assistant.
Well, it sounds like you're building one heck of a team here. So there's another comment for you. Thank you, Carolyn, for empowering our family and enhancing community safety by prosecuting and sentencing a criminal.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. We sometimes, I do appreciate that comment, because sometimes when we read the comments or the blogs in the newspaper, people make various comments that we see. We don't oftentimes comment on those, but I think there is some confusion as far as what our ultimate input can be in a case, and sometimes what input is from the bench. And so we can put the heavy hammer down, and oftentimes we really rely on the judges to assist us in that heavy hammer.
Sure.
And oftentimes there's a reason for separation of powers, right? So
right.
I don't, when you read some of the comments in the newspaper, in social media, that the prosecutors are easy, the prosecutors are doing this, the prosecutors are handing away cases, or we don't. And I can tell you, between myself, Christina, and the prosecutors that we have in our office, we all have a common goal in mind, and that's to keep our community safe. And everybody knows what our goal is, and there are never any mixed messages. You can talk with any one of our assistant prosecutors at any time, and they will tell you that the goal is to keep our community safe.
Terrific. So talk about, if you would, talk about kind of like what's going on from Lansing. We've got all kinds of, everybody I've talked to, and every single, whether it's the solar farm people or the, whatever I've talked to on here, it seems to be something interesting or odd or terrible is coming rooted in Lansing, especially the last 2 years. So what's your story about the craziness in Lansing, and how has it helped you along?
Never a dull day in Lansing, I tell you. I do appreciate so much our state representatives that have served, are currently serving, our state senator, just the communication that our office has with them is absolutely appreciated. We oftentimes get calls from their offices that want us to review bills, different things that are going through their office, just to get some comment on what our thoughts are. And we absolutely appreciate that and understand the process that they go through as they're having to deal with everything in Lansing as well. Some of the things that we have seen going through Lansing, certainly just recently, obviously the truth in sentencing was something that
Okay.
people have read about in the news that caused some pause and some concern for prosecutors throughout the state of Michigan. I know our Prosecutors Association did a great job in presenting to the people in Lansing our objections to changing anything as it relates to truth in sentencing.
Could you get back up just a little bit for people
Mhm.
that don't understand what truth in sentencing is? What is that?
Yep, truth in sentencing, it means that when somebody, say for instance, if somebody is sentenced to 24 months in the Michigan Department of Corrections, they serve 24 months in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Okay.
So that's what it's truth in what is handed to them by the judge as far as
Okay.
sentencing. It means
Okay.
it is a certain number. You know what that person is serving.
Okay.
What the proposal was from different, I guess, different discussions was they wanted truth in sentencing to go by the wayside. So they wanted the prisoners to be given productivity credits is what they were calling them. So if they were good in prison, if they were taking classes, if they were behaving and not getting
Mhm.
any misconducts, then there was this proposal going through Lansing that they wanted them to be rewarded, and they wanted to go by the way, the truth in sentencing to go by the wayside and not have to serve, for instance, that 24 months. So you might
Kind of
get
time off for good behavior type thing. Okay.
absolutely,
All right.
yes, yes. And that's very hard when you speak to victims of crime. How do you explain to them that because this person has decided to take some type of class in the Department of Corrections, that they're now going to be serving less time in the Department of Corrections for taking that class? It's unfortunate that some of the language in these truth in sentencing bills that were being proposed just didn't take into consideration some of the factors that are necessary. And frankly, I guess in my mind, if a judge gives you 24 months, you should serve 24 months. That's,
Seems
once
reasonable
you've
to me.
absolutely. And I think a lot of people know if you have reached the Michigan Department of Corrections, those are cases that, when you're going through the criminal justice system, it's time that has absolutely been earned. You have either a prior record that has made it so you are serving time in the Michigan Department of Corrections
Mhm.
rather than a jail, or you have served or you have committed a crime that has been so serious or so heinous that you have earned the time in the Michigan Department of Corrections. So I think truth in sentencing is so important in
Okay.
our law. I think it's something that shouldn't be changed. There was
It
also
sort of takes it
discussion.
out of the judge's hands at that point. It becomes somebody else's decision as opposed to the judge's. If there's time off for good behavior, that overrules a judicial decision. I don't like that.
Sure does, absolutely. And that's, I think, some frustration that we hear back, some feedback that we get from the bench as well. And so I think a lot of times as well, some of the discussions that we're going through Lansing as well is continuation on bail reforms. So they had done some bail reforms previously, and now they were looking to extend the bail reform laws and making it so that somebody who had committed what they consider a non-serious misdemeanor gets a no cash bail. And so when you look at what non-serious misdemeanors are, I mean, even like an assault and battery would be
Right.
considered a non-serious misdemeanor. And it doesn't take into consideration necessarily anybody's prior record. There was some language being proposed during some of this bail reform that we could argue for some considerations from the court. But again, it just takes a lot of the control out of the hands of the judges, and the judges who are elected, again, to
That's
really
key word there.
protect,
The ones who are elected. Yes.
yeah, to protect our communities. And so what these proposed laws were doing is just taking it out of the hands of the people who know our community better. And I really I think that's concerning from our standpoint. There have been some positive things that have come out of Lansing. I think in some of the laws that we've seen as far as proposed changes or changes that have been made, There is some more supports being made for victims of crime. So victims of crime can now come before the courts and make what's called their victim impact statement.
Mhm.
So a victim impact statement is a statement that they can make to the court at the time of sentencing. And they can make that victim impact statement by Zoom. So they don't actually have to come to the courts. They can appear
that would
by
be
Zoom.
that would be less traumatic. You don't have to necessarily be face to face with the person that
Mhm.
assaulted you or whatever.
Yeah, it really, I think it really provides some more maybe protections and some just peace of mind to the victims
Mhm.
where they don't necessarily have to, transportation is always an issue, but I think
Mhm.
just in general, it's very scary to come before a court to face your abuser, your attacker, the person who you are a victim of. And
Right.
so just the protections that the law has given us to allow them to appear by Zoom has been very good for the victims.
Terrific. Terrific. So I'm going to go back to my Leadership Livingston days when I taught the judicial system. And one of the most common questions that were asked were, what do you guys have? I think a lot of people get their ideas of prosecutors from what's the show?
Suits or Law and Order?
Law and
Or
Order, no, not Suits. No, yeah, no, definitely not Suits. But yeah, Law and Order. They get their Law and Order, where the lead prosecutor and the chief of assistant are out there doing detective work. I'm not thinking that's how it really works, or at least if I remember correctly, all the years that I used to present this, that's not how it works. So could you kind of just briefly kind of walk everyone through, like, how do you get a case? Do you guys go out and find it? Does somebody call you? I mean, could I call you and say, this guy is annoying me, would you please go around, would you please prosecute him? How does that work?
It's a great question. I often times call, my mom loves the Law and Order shows and the Boston Legal shows, and she always thinks that there's these Matlock moments in court, where we call them the Matlock moments, or the you can't handle the truth moments, and unfortunately we don't have those, a whole lot of
Right.
them. But yeah, so cases, and I will say, I'm glad you asked that question, because our office does get a lot of emails from various citizens. And the citizens will email us and they'll say, we want you to charge so and so with a crime. And they'll send us the big long email that has all the facts in there, and we want this to be charged as a crime. And we can't do that. We are an independent agency of our law enforcement partners. And what has to happen is that law enforcement has to do an independent investigation. So somebody has to make a complaint to the law enforcement agency. So we have a number of wonderful, wonderful law enforcement agencies that we work with in Livingston County. And I can't say enough good things about our law enforcement partners. So they would make a complaint to the law enforcement agency. That law enforcement agency would then submit to our office if there was sufficient evidence to say that somebody had committed a crime. They send the paperwork to our office on what's called a request for warrant. And there's a whole warrant packet that is submitted to our office. Until we get that warrant packet, we cannot even look at a case for charging consideration.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we have to get that packet of information for charging consideration. And then there's a lot of work that goes into the front end of a case. So a prosecutor will look at all of the investigation that the law enforcement officer has submitted to us. And oftentimes that includes many, many documents. It also includes a lot of video. We have now in this wonderful technology age, as we're here today, sitting on a podcast, talking to some
That's
wonderful
right.
people. But we have a lot of body cameras, video, audio recordings that we also listen to prior to authorizing a case. So our prosecutors put a lot of work on the front end in looking at all of the documents, looking at the investigation, and then determining whether or not there's a crime that was committed in Livingston County and this person who they are asking us to file charges on has committed the crime in Livingston County. Sometimes we might have to ask the law enforcement agency to do some extra work on the case.
Sure.
And they certainly don't like on our warrant request forms. There's a form that's submitted, And unfortunately, the way that our technology is set up, there's a big yellow box that is put on this warrant request form. And so in this big yellow box, we will say this is the additional information that we need in order to consider charges for this person.
Okay.
But they're very good about going out and getting us any additional information that we might need for charging considerations. But then what we do is we can authorize the case, we can deny a case. If we authorize a case, we file the necessary paperwork with the courts. We prepare what's called a bond recommendation that goes along with our authorization, and then the case is filed within the district court. The first court date that is set when we file charges against somebody is called an arraignment date.
Okay.
So that's the date that somebody goes before the court and the judge reads the charges to them. We make the decision of whether or not we want to have an arrest warrant authorized on a case, or whether or not we want to do what's called a notice to appear.
Okay.
So oftentimes on assaultive cases, on felony cases, we do have the ability then to say we want an arrest warrant authorized on this case.
Okay.
And then it goes through the court system. So I don't know how much time we have, but we could go through misdemeanors, felonies.
No, we don't have to go that far.
We don't want to go that long.
I guess I'm looking at the backstory. And something I remember, both Dave Morris and Bill Valancourt used to tell the class every single year, was that there's a misconception that the prosecutor's job is to prosecute. And what I remember Dave clearly saying year after year, it was you were supposed to find the truth.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily to prosecute, but if there was reason to believe that the crime was committed, then absolutely prosecute it. But that your first obligation is to find the truth, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I really hang my head on that one thing that David Reeder always says is do the right thing for the right reasons at the right time. And oftentimes that means, seeking justice in a case. And justice doesn't always look like what, unfortunately, people want it to look like.
Right.
And so there might not be enough information on a case for us to authorize charges. And, again, I always tell even some of our younger prosecutors, this is an extremely powerful position to hold, because you really have the ability to take somebody's freedom away. And so you never, ever want to use that power for bad. It's just you want to make sure that you have everything that you need. This isn't a willy-nilly. This isn't a, well, we have almost everything, but we're missing this one thing. You want to make sure. And that's why what we use, what we can balance in court is, can we prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt? Do we have the information in order to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? You just never want to take away anybody's freedoms without having all of that information that you need, that's necessary to file charges against somebody.
Okay. And that's, and that's good to know, because I think the general public has a misconception, probably from television, that the prosecutor's going to hang somebody just to make the case for their own record, for their own, to make their office look good. We got to have somebody on this. Let's just go for it. And it doesn't sound like that's your practice or ever will be.
Never. No, it's really, what a lot of our policies and procedures in our office are, a lot of times people will say, well, prosecutors hide stuff. Prosecutors hide discovery. In that should never be happening in our office. And we take it to the nth degree to make sure that anything we have, the defense attorneys have. We have consultations with our law enforcement partners. We make sure that if there is information out there, that we have it and we provide it to the defense attorneys as well. We sometimes find ourselves, this is going to come off as, so I don't want it to sound arrogant, but oftentimes we find ourselves doing a checks and balances on behalf of the defendants as well. We want to make sure that the cases are protected, that if we do have a conviction, that the conviction is protected. It is not a win at all cost at our office. This is seeking justice. Absolutely. And I can tell you there's so many reasons for it, but at the forefront is when you have victims that come to court that testify, that tell jurors there's what had happened to them. You never want them to have to come back to court again and tell their story again,
Right,
because the
right.
case comes back on appeal for something that we didn't do. And so we really want to make sure that the integrity of the convictions and the cases are protected as well.
Okay. Well, and again, and I remember, I also remember Dave saying something about his biggest nightmare was to prosecute somebody that he felt was innocent. And he said that just was the biggest nightmare, and that if his gut feeling said innocent, they dug deeper and dug deeper. So it sounds like you're doing pretty much the same thing for the same reasons.
Yeah, yeah. If your gut feeling is that somebody is innocent, you should not be filing charges against that
Yeah.
person. If there is ever a time, even sometimes there might be times where we file charges against somebody and we are presented with additional information. A defense attorney may have done an additional investigation or present us with text messages, videos, information that we have to consider and balance. And again, you never want to have a wrongful conviction.
No,
you never want to
no,
have that come
No,
back.
no.
And so we take a good hard look at the information that's presented to us
I think
as well.
that's comforting for everybody. Let's take a couple of things here. We have Teresa here talking about she'd love more protection for the victims. What kind of protection? That's a good question. Teresa, thanks for bringing up that subject. What kind of questions do you have, or what kind of protection do you do for the victims?
Yeah, so we in our office, we have victim advocates that assist and help the victims as they're going through the system. So oftentimes people, when they find themselves having to come to court, having to file police reports, having to talk with a lot of different people, it's extremely scary. And we take it for granted because we're in court all the time and we see the judges all the time. We see the familiar faces, we see the defense attorneys. We know, we'll oftentimes question people on the stand every single day. We never take for granted that victims, when they have to come to court, this may be the first time that somebody has come to court. And it really is a scary process. And if you imagine even being a child, that if you're a child and you have to come in and testify in a big, huge courtroom, and there's all these strangers just looking at you, what protections can we give to those victims? And oftentimes, we will have the courtrooms closed. So courtrooms will be closed when there are child victims. We do have other support systems as well. We work with La Casa, who does have one of the victim advocate animals. So we used to have a dog from La Casa that would come and assist the victims when they would testify. And so Penny, who was their previous dog, who would come to court as a support system, she had passed away, but they got another dog named Ember.
I just read that. I just read that.
Yep. So you would be amazed at just the comforts that the dogs provide to people who come to court and have to testify in court. And it's not just child victims. It's, a lot of all the victims that come to court to testify get those types of support systems as well. You can also have a support person sit in the courtroom with you. So we do have support people as well. And then just in general, keeping in contact and making sure that they know about what's going to happen in court. They know, you don't want to just blindly file charges and then have a subpoena be put in a victim's hand and have them never talk with anybody from our office. So our victim advocates are real good about keeping in contact with the victims. Our attorneys reach out to any of the victims and witnesses before they have to testify. So if we have court hearings that are scheduled, they're very good about scheduling meetings with the people, talking with them before the court hearings, and just giving them an idea of what's going to happen and what may be asked. We never tell a victim or a witness what to say. That's completely against the rules.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Yes, and we always tell them, tell the truth. That's our biggest thing. When you do have some of the younger witnesses that have to come to court to testify, we'll oftentimes take them over to the courthouse and let them see where they will be sitting, where the judge will be sitting, where everybody will be talking. Just kind of give them a feeling of this is what's going to happen. So I think it helps to have people come in and just see that ahead of time.
All right. So Jay wants to know, well, his typing is less than stellar here, so I don't understand most of his question, but what I'm gathering is that have you gotten any, there's a new law about the construction zone and the police and everything else. Have you gotten any construction zone speed camera tickets come through your office yet?
I have not seen any of those tickets,
Okay.
but I tell you, I don't keep. I'm going to make a confession to Jay. I don't keep track of a lot of our formal hearings or the traffic tickets that come before the court. But I'm going to make sure to ask the attorneys who see those to see if we've had any of those tickets come through. Those
That's
would be interesting.
That'd be interesting. So let me ask you this too. What another thing I found very interesting listening to prosecutors over the years is, what is your number one crime in Livingston County? What is the number one thing you prosecute?
Gosh, I will say most of the crimes that we have that come through are drunk drivings. We see a lot of drunk drivings. We see, unfortunately, a lot of retail fraud cases. And I think the retail fraud cases are because our stores are so close to the expressways. We see a lot of retail frauds from our outlet malls. We see a lot of retail frauds from the Walmarts with the Lowe's and the Home Depot. I think the addition of these self-scanning systems
Mhm.
really just give the opportunity for the criminal to do what's called skip scanning, where you will scan one item but skip three that you also have in your hand. So it's becoming a problem. And I will say, within our office, that is one of the written policies that we have in our office is we don't offer any plea reductions or plea deals to the retail fraud offenders. And there's a reason, I mean, we're all paying a lot of money for all these items that people are stealing, right? It's just, and one of the other things we talk about within our office, one of the things that we talked about with David Reeder quite often was the broken windows theory. And so we oftentimes say, when you don't take care of the little crimes, then people just keep committing the crimes.
Right.
And so then the little crimes turn into the bigger crimes. And you will see people come through the court system when we have our retail fraud cases, and they say, well, these are not assaultive cases. Why are you guys being so hard on these? Well, we're being hard on these because this is the crux of our community. This is the safety. We are putting our hammer down on the retail frauds because we don't want people to come to our community to steal. We don't. And so, that's the message we want to send out is don't come to Livingston County to steal.
Good.
Don't come to Livingston County to commit crimes. So, but I would say, a large part of our caseload is unfortunately the drunk drivings, and a large amount of our cases are substance abuse related. So if we do have retail fraud cases, oftentimes retail fraud cases, they come with some type of substance abuse problem. So it might be a methamphetamine addiction. It might be a heroin addiction. So they're stealing to fund that addiction.
I would have to believe that a lot of your crimes, if there wasn't and it might not be stealing to pay for drugs, although that's certainly probably a lot of it, but I would imagine that drugs and alcohol have a place in almost, or a lot of them. Maybe they were high when they thought of it, or high when they did it, or had a couple drinks and then thought, well, that's a good idea, let's go do this. And I have to believe that that's probably a contributor to a great deal of issues on a wide scale.
It really is. It's even goes back to, a lot of our domestic violence cases. Violence cases, when you think, what's the background of the parties involved in domestic violence? Oftentimes it's substance abuse related. Might be alcohol, might be drugs, might be both. And so really, that's why I really speak highly and think highly of all the specialty courts that we have going within our court system right now. We have the intensive treatment court for mental health courts. We have the adult drug court for felonies and adult drug court for misdemeanors. We have a veterans treatment court. We have a juvenile treatment court as well. So a lot of these courts really try to address what brings people into the system, because ultimately what we'd like to do is to reduce recidivism and, maybe give people assistance and help to keep them from committing crimes. I'd love to say that we have 100% success rates. We don't, But we really, if we can help one person, we're helping
Sure.
one family.
Sure.
And when you see that success come through the court system,
Sure.
and the person becomes sober, and the strength that just gives to a family, we have kids that show up and thank the judges and thank all the people that are involved in helping their family grow stronger and helping their mom, dad, brother, sister become sober and give them the tools to remain sober.
It's funny you're talking about the drugs related. I remember in Leadership Livingston, Tim Livingston was talking, was filling in one of the few times defense attorney Jim Buttry did not talk about defense.
You're very brave in letting Tim talk.
I know. Well, and it worked out good, but I remember at the time, this was, 15, 20 years ago, he was talking about, the amount of crime that was substance abuse, either alcohol or drugs. But he said the marijuana drug, he was trying to pitch for marijuana. He said, if you want my opinion on how to change things, you make marijuana legal and you outlaw alcohol. He said, he goes, you don't smoke a joint and then go beat your wife. You go order pizza.
Get a bag of Cheetos. I can hear Tim saying that for sure.
I know. I've never forgotten that. It was quite funny. So we got a question here. Rob wants to know, Carolyn, do you feel the COVID shutdown has led to increases in crime? That is a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, we started our administration on the back end of COVID. So we did have a lot of backup in cases as a result of COVID. What I did see coming out of COVID, unfortunately, was an increase in crime. But I think that, unfortunately, where we saw the increases, where I think with mental health issues, and we saw a lot of substance use and abuse as a result of people just, I think, being locked in their homes, and people didn't have a whole lot going on in their houses. We did see a slight increase in some of our child abuse cases as well. And, I think
I was worried about that.
Yep. So there was a slight tick in the increase in the child abuse cases. But I really think as the years went on, that really has kind of worked itself out. We still have, I'd love to say that we don't have a drug or alcohol problem within Livingston County, but we do. The methamphetamine is here. We hadn't seen heroin in a long time, but it's starting to make its comeback. Fentanyl is always the most dangerous drug in the world. It's awful. It's here. We see it. It's unfortunate. And, I think we have a wonderful law enforcement team that does what they can to make sure that people are not putting the drugs into the hands of our community, into the hands of our kids. And they really, they do a nice job of cracking down on it.
Great. Okay. Well, I got one more question for you. Can you tell me, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, so sorry. Tell me why, and this is, understanding that this podcast is called The Right Side for a reason, and it's about, the Republican side of things. So can you tell me some of the benefits or why it's important? I guess that's the way to say it. Why is it important we have a Republican prosecutor in this county versus a Democrat one or a liberal one?
Sure, absolutely. Well, some of the things that I talked about earlier in Lansing that the Prosecutors Association in general were fighting were bills that were pushed by the Dems. And, it's what we call the hug a thug theory. And Livingston County and the conservative,
Wait a minute, the hug a thug?
That's what we call it. It's really
That's
worried.
good,
I know I said we could put it on a bumper sticker, right? Let's put it on a bumper. We are anti hug a thug.
All right. Hug a thug.
Right. But it's more of the, instead of really focusing on the rights of crime victims, the pendulum had shifted over the years, and the focus was becoming more on the offenders and on the defendant. And you're talking about bail reforms, you're talking about truth in sentencing, you're talking about productivity credits. Well, what about the holding people accountable?
Right.
And what about, that's so important when people commit crimes. If you're constantly giving them a pass, well, that's why they continue to commit crimes. And again, it's taking care of the smaller crimes. It's taking care of the broken windows. We don't want the broken windows in our community.
Sure.
We want to make sure that we are tough on crime. And we do not subscribe in Livingston County for what they call this progressive prosecution movement. My office will not. I made a promise. I vowed to my predecessor and probably, just to David Reeder. He said, make me a promise you're going to protect our community. And I easily can make that promise. I live in this community. My children live in this community. It is, again, I have been so fortunate to live here for many, many, many years. And it's about our families that we have here. Mm-hmm. It's about the closeness that our community has, the protections that we get, that we are so fortunate to have. And I want that to continue. I never want our community to be concerned about their safety at any point in time. Mm-hmm. And it's easier said than done. I think, in today's day and age, and even as technologies increase, and, I would love to say, crime has not risen. It has. We would be silly to not recognize that fact. But, we have a number of new developments that come into the community, and that just brings more people into our community. It causes crime to increase here and there. But again, if we address it, if we continue to handle it in the manner that we are right now in being tough on crime, that's important to our citizen. And it's important to have that person who focuses on the victims of crime and not necessarily on that progressive prosecution movement.
And that's not to say that you're in favor of violating a criminal's rights. I mean, They do have rights, and you respect the rights. But I think what is comforting is knowing that you're not protecting the rights of the criminal above and beyond what the rights of the victim have, or at least, over protecting the rights, and then not worrying about or not considering the rights of the victim.
Correct.
So that's comforting to know. So, well, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
You've been a great kickoff to the series. So every Tuesday we will try to have another county official here to kind of just tell you about themselves, what they do in their office, and why it's important that office stay Republican. That's kind of like the underlying message here that we want to say. So at this point, we're going to take a commercial. We'll be back. So everybody run to the bathroom and come on back, because we've got some real good stuff coming for you.
I am Jay Drick, Chairman of the Board, Livingston County Commissioners. We are a constitutional and 2A county. We have the lowest tax millage rate and the lowest unemployment in the state. Livingston is rated one of the healthiest and safest counties in Michigan. Livingston has a balanced budget and an elite AAA bond rating, the highest possible. These 9 commissioners strive for smaller government. Our Republican values saved taxpayers over $4 million in 2024 alone. We believe Elon copied us.
Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning is a fantastic new blend of herbs and vegetables made in Livingston County. Add a tablespoon to homemade breads, soups, stews, meat, poultry, vegetables, casseroles, sauces, and more. To order, email Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning at gmail.com or message the Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning Facebook page. It's time to divorce you or marry me chicken and take advantage of free delivery in and around Livingston County. Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning, the only seasoning you need.
Okay, we want to thank our major sponsor, Jason Huntley with Premier Financial Planning, and he has asked me to read this passage. John Adams warned that the Constitution is wholly inadequate without a moral and religious people. As conservatives, we must reclaim the faith that shaped it, rooted in Jesus Christ and the Bible. To help you understand the historic Christianity that our county was founded on, check out theexaltedchrist.com, a resource website proclaiming Christ as King. Hi, welcome back. And with me right now is my guest, Terran Frye. Terran is, well, I'll let Terran tell you himself, but Terran's here to talk. You'll recall a couple weeks ago we had Alex Yarber here along with Wes Nakagiri from Heartland, and they were talking about the Heartland Cromaine Library and their policy on labeling books. Well, that wasn't the only controversial item on that agenda. That was just what we happened to talk about that particular night on that podcast. But what else on that agenda was whether or not to put say the pledge at the meetings. Apparently they don't. And the new Republican majority board, a conservative majority board wanted to do that. And there was a little bit of pushback, I guess. So Terran got up and spoke, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But for right now, I want to ask Terran to kind of introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about you and your history, and let's start there.
Yes.
Welcome, Terran.
Thank you. Marine combat veteran. I served 2 tours in Iraq. I enlisted in the Marine Corps back, I was still in high school. Let's see, I was a senior. So 2001, I went off into boot camp before 9/11 happened. I was actually in boot camp when it happened. And then obviously I went off to Iraq in 2003. I was there for the invasion. I came home. Back to Camp Lejeune, and then I had a kid, and then I thought I was getting out in 2005, and the Marine Corps said nope, and sent me back over. I only did a couple months back over there again, but I went back and did base security in 2005, and came back and got pushed out of the Marine Corps then. So
okay, so you're home now, and you're married, yes, and you're living with your family, and yes, that's good. So you recently were made aware of a situation going on at the Heartland Library. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so from my understanding, in December, the old board, decided that they're going to try to stick it out there and cancel out the Pledge of Allegiance for whatever reason.
And this is Heartland Cromaine Library, correct?
Yes, this was the Heartland Library.
Right.
And decided to take the Pledge of Allegiance out. And for me, that's a huge thing and very concerning to me, being patriotic and stuff. I mean, I understand freedom of speech, and, if people don't want to participate into it, I get that. However, there's no reason to take it out. If you just want to stand there and not say the Pledge of Allegiance, I get it. That's your right. But let's not take it out. That's the reason why we're here. And I got up and I spoke about this because, to me, I've seen guys serve this country under this flag, and it means a lot. And, I don't know how to explain it to people that don't serve, but when we go to a ball game, I go to my niece's volleyball games or a baseball game, or, we're down at Comerica Park. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem, it means more than just looking at a flag. There's so much more, because I see the people that are no longer here with us. I see my brothers and sisters that are gone. That's what I see. I see those faces that fought for our country. Now, I know there's other people like, Vietnam veterans and stuff like that, fought, but I can only see what
What you
my
saw.
perspective.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
that's the people that I served with.
Sure.
So it means a lot to me. And again, it bothers me when I'm at these games and, you know, stadiums and stuff, and I see people talking, and it's disrespect. And I want to say something to them, but again, I try to be humble and not say anything because that's their right too, I guess. But
And what's worse is that's a right you fought to give them.
yeah, you know, and they don't understand. I think it's a lot of uneducated people out there that don't understand what this flag is about and what it stands for. You know, there's a lot of things that bother me about the flag that people don't even understand here in Livingston County.
Well, talk
Just-
to them about it. What are they?
Oh, well, I know, like flying the flag, there's like a certain order that you're supposed to fly the flag into.
Oh,
even.
good. What would that be?
So first off is the American flag.
Okay.
So that's the most important flag there is. So and there's a subdivision that's off of M59 that I've contacted them because they fly their subdivision, their builder's flag, then the American flag, and then a builder's flag. I stopped in and I tried to talk to them. I've called them, and they still, it's disrespect to not fly it in the proper order. And I don't know what else to do, I guess. It just bothers me, and I want to say it shouldn't bother me, but it should. It should
should.
bother more people, I guess. You know, it's disrespect.
I don't know. I mean, I don't
For all of
necessarily
us.
know that even a lot of people that don't want to disrespect the flag. I don't know that they know that there's an order. So it would be the American flag first. What comes after that? Let's say there's several.
So it goes the POW flag, MIA flag is the next flag
Okay.
after that. And
Okay.
then let's see. I got to make sure I do this in the right
Okay.
order.
Well, somebody will be posting.
Yeah,
and then
someone
if you
else is going to
don't-
call me out onto if I mess it up, you know. And then you know, then your state flag would be the next, you know, the next flag in order.
Okay.
Actually, the VFW flag I think would actually come before your state flag if
Wow,
I'm
okay.
not
Okay.
wrong. Like I said, I'm sure someone's going to call me out and say, let's get this right. But
Okay.
I believe that is the correct order. Is the VFW flag would come before
Okay.
the state flag would.
So the American flag, the MIA POW flag, the VFW flag, and then the state flag.
Correct.
Then after that would be whatever
Just whatever flags you wanted
flag
to
you
go
want to do. Yeah,
after
your
that.
HOA or your whatever.
Yeah, whatever flag. I
Your-
mean,
your school flag, whatever.
yes, exactly. But
Okay, and when they do it wrong, that's upsetting. Do you hear from other? I mean, you're very active in the American Legion.
correct.
You're very active in the VFW. So when you talk to other veterans, do you hear this kind of thing from them? We had another veteran on here a little while ago. Here talking about Carolyn. If there's any other veterans that are watching this, let me know in here. Does this bother you too? Is this something that you see and you're able to just look the other way, or is it you kind of grit your teeth a little bit first? So I'd be interested to know. But so do you hear other people, Terran, talk about this, and other veterans, and they mention it as well, or?
I know Bobby Bright at the Legion. He is very
Yes.
dedicated to it, you know, and making sure it's done right. Representative Wolford is onto it. I know there's quite a few other people that are very, you know, onto it as well. You know, I mean, it is very important, you know, and it's like, it's disrespect. It really is.
Right,
It comes down
right.
to disrespect, and it's not just for our country, but it's for the men that and women that died for this flag.
Sure.
You know, and I can't stress it enough. And when I went to the library and spoke there and explained, you know, I lost several friends over this, and to see, you know, the issues with it, you know, for me too is the last issue that I'm going to see with this flag is it's going to be on the top of me. That's the last thing that's going to come from my country. Is going to be on my coffin is this flag, because that's the last thing that that I'm going to get from my country. Sorry.
No, do not apologize. I'm going to apologize on behalf of anybody that's put you in this position where you need to feel this way. Whether it's somebody whoever's in that, if somebody watching is in that sub, please change that. Please get a hold of that owner and let them know. It's just, here's Rob. You're crying. Okay, good. So it's a serious thing, and veterans do get upset. I recall last probably fall, I guess, when Rolling Thunder does a big ride to remember every single year, and I am just been blessed for the last, I know it's been more than 20 years, because I think somewhere along the lines when I started was when my son first joined the Army, and he did his 20, and then it's been a year since he's retired. So I know it's been at least 20 years that I've been singing the national anthem and Amazing Grace or whatever else they want me to do there. And this last year, I remember seeing Bobby Bright there, and as I was standing listening to speakers or singing or whatever I was doing, I saw Bobby kind of get red face and storm out. And I thought, wow, what happened? Somebody get him angry? But I didn't know he was over there, and I was up standing there with my straight face. I didn't want anybody, because everybody could see me. But then he came back a little while later, and all of a sudden the flag went down, and then a new flag went up. And Jay and I went to the American Legion afterwards, and we talked to Bobby and asked him what was that about. And he said he got there, and here we are doing a veterans MIA POW tribute, and the flag that was hanging at the courthouse was tattered and nasty.
Oh.
So Bobby went back and got a new flag, and I don't know that people pay attention to that, but certainly, I mean, this is a wake up call to the rest of us that certainly veterans do. So everybody, look at your flag, make sure it's clean and neat, and if it's not, I think the American Legion has a ceremony where you can dispose of them. Yeah. Yes. So hang on to them, fold them, keep them somewhere, and then put them, give them to the American Legion when it comes to their appropriate disposal. Just again,
you can drop them off at any time.
Okay, well, good. Then they'll be done respectfully. But I remember going there, and I remember Bobby. I was shocked that those flags cost $100, and I just gave Jay the look, and Jay nodded and gave $100 to the Legion, said, here, you should not have to pay for the county. So, and so, I mean, frankly, I would almost like to challenge anybody watching, go give $100 to the Legion, say this is for new flags, because this is what they do, and they shouldn't have to pay for this stuff. So I appreciate that. I appreciate Bobby seeing that and getting that done. So
this happens a lot though with the Legion. Most people don't know that when there's a flag in downtown Howell, the Legion is one of the first people that step up and come out and replace those flags. It doesn't matter if it's a business, if it's a individual, the Legion, the riders come through and they're carrying flags, and they do replace flags quite often for even individuals.
Yes, I can imagine. So Marco Lalio says, thank you, Terran. Yes, it bothers him, and he's sure other veterans as well. So you unless you're a veteran, you don't know these things. So, I mean, not to have tatters, but I don't know that everybody spots it like a veteran would. But it was, like I said, isn't it? What really stinks is that you're fighting to give them the right to do these things. So, anyway, so you spoke at the Heartland Chroming Library. So what would you suggest? I mean, if you were going to tell them, if you're going to testify today in front of them, which I imagine you'll be going back next week and talking to them, what will be your message then to them?
Again, I've spoke to several of them, and they heard me. My message was very clear, that it doesn't matter what side you're on, whether you're Republican or Democrat, either your grandparents, your mom, your dad, your uncles, your brothers, your sisters, your neighbor, somebody has enlisted and signed up to fight for that flag, to fight for our country. And they've signed a blank check saying that they are willing to give their body to the country and fight for it to death. And that's what this is about. This is a flag that they're going to fight for. And that's what this flag is. It's our country. And it stands for all of our states and our colonies and everything. And it's developed and involved with all of us in our country. So it stands for everything that we're about. You know, that's something that's who we are. And that is, I mean, we salute it as military people, soldiers, Marines, sailors. We salute it because that's a sign of respect. And it's a very high honor to us that we don't let touch the ground. That's another thing. Like it's a huge honor to be able to, you know, carry the flag with us. You know, here we are in Iraq, and we have a flag on our truck because we are proud of our country, and that's who we are. You know, it's like no matter where we're at and our base or whatever, we still, you know, say the Pledge of Allegiance and salute the flag in the morning. We're raising the flag up every morning and taking the flag down. You know, it's, you know, most people just don't see those types of behavior because you don't live it. But once you're enlisted in the military,
Sure.
or an officer, even, you know, it don't have to be just enlisted, but when you're serving your country, you see this and you know that this flag means so much more to you. It's everything. This is everything. And it's, like I said, it's going to be the last thing that
The
I'm going to
soldiers,
get
yeah.
from my country. You know, I've seen my brothers and my sisters. I've buried them. I've went to their funerals. I've went to guys that I don't even know. I've went to their funerals, and that's the last thing that goes across their coffin. And when they go down, it's folded up and it's given to their family members. It's the last thing that this country gives to the soldier, the service member, and then it goes to their family. It's the
Okay.
last
And it's
final
not
thing.
just it's not just a piece of cloth to you,
No.
to your brothers and sisters.
No.
So let me ask you this: what were your thoughts about the whole kneeling during the anthem when when you had the professional sports?
I quit watching it. You know,
Well,
I got away from it, and I'm slowly been getting back into watching football. The last 2 years, it's been nice to be able to watch football again, you know, but I quit watching. I got away from it. I canceled cable. I could care less about watching it when you start doing those types of behavior to kneel at it, knowing that my brothers and sisters could kneel for a flag. You know, they died for that
Right.
flag, fighting for it. So
right.
you choose to kneel for it for somebody that's gave you the freedom to actually do that is very dishonoring to those people that gave you that
Agreed.
opportunity.
Agreed. And you know, if it were, you know, I mean, there are protests that you can do, and there's ways to protest that get your message apart, a message away, and then there are just ways that are so disrespectful that, you know, the thing is that whole thing lost their message. They just lost their whole message because of that. So that was just a foolish move. So Rob says he's so proud of you, Terran, for your service to the country and the message on respecting the flag. That is,
Thank you.
we're all proud of you for that. You know, we were moved when Terran got up, and there were a lot of people talking on many different topics. I think we covered a bunch of them a couple weeks ago, but Terran got the only standing ovation of the night. It was, as you can see, he's sincere in his beliefs, and and I can't. As Marco said earlier, it bothers him too, and other veterans. So everybody pay attention to that flag. If you have an organization that's, you know, an American organization, don't wait until somebody decides that they're going to stampede and have a you know, stand up and yell at you because you're not doing the pledge. If you're American and you have an American organization, say the pledge. Say the pledge to that flag. Treat the flag respectfully. Communities, neighborhoods, whomever out there, you go outside and look at your flags. Take a look at them. If they're tattered, take them down and get another one. And again, I challenge anybody, or I ask anybody that can, write $100 check to the American Legion in Howell, and just make it put in the memo, or designate it for new flags, because if they're replacing things, they're replacing flags. That's, you know, that's money that's a lot of money to go around the community and do that. So if we can all help, we should. So we got another comment here from Joni Econom. says you make her proud to be an American, and she's proud to know you and our other military members. Agreed, Joni. I
Thank you.
totally agree with you. So, anything else you want to say on this subject, Terran?
Well, I do want to say after the meeting at the library, I left. A lot of people shook my hand and thanked me for speaking up about it. I did have a lady that she was a Democrat, and she made it very clear during the meeting how she stood. She came up to me after that, kind of scared me a little bit. She came up in her truck and flew up and was hollering at me, and I'm like, okay, what's getting ready to happen here? But she said thank you, and she appreciated me standing up and speaking up about this. And her father fought in, I want to say it was World War II.
Okay.
And her father was buried under the flag, and she does respect it, and she did agree that the pledge should be brought back to the meetings as well.
Is she a Republican now, or
She didn't know.
You didn't go that far.
Didn't go that far, but
Right.
I knew
that's
that
the
was
first good step, right?
she did agree with me at least
All
that it should be brought back, and her father fought for that flag
Okay.
as well. So she did respect that part.
And
of it.
frankly, I'm glad. I'm glad she that you reached her, and I'm glad she reached out, because this is not, the flag is not Republican or Democrat.
No.
The Pledge of Allegiance is not Republican or Democrat. The Star Spangled Banner is not Republican or Democrat. It is American, and we're all Americans, and we all have, when we have different beliefs, different ideologies, and different methods that we want to get to our different goals. I get that. That's okay. That's the way government works. We were set up by our founding fathers to do it that way, to disagree and to continue to push and prod each other to make sure that works. But the flag or the anthem or the pledge, that should never, ever, ever come into play in any of this stuff. So I'm really, really proud of you, Terran, that you did that. So Ron Gillard, where liberty dwells, there is my country. This nation will remain the land of the free so long as it is the home of the brave. My patriotic heart beats red, white, and blue. Liberty is the breath of life to nations. Well, Ron's in a quoting kind of mood today. So thanks, Ron, for that. That's true, though. All those are true. This is not a political issue. It's our flag right there. We've got it right there in our office. We're proud of it. We stand up. Now I got to make sure it's not touching the floor. It's not.
Right, yes.
It's in good shape. So that's good news. That would have been embarrassing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, all right.
good.
Well, thanks, Terran, for
Yeah,
coming in and
thank
sharing
you.
this message. You can see you got a lot of good comments here. A lot of people believe with you. So again, everybody, take a look around. You see a bad flag, get it down, or approach somebody to get it down. Veterans are seeing this stuff, and I can't believe Terran's the only one that's getting upset by it. So keep that in mind, and we'll be able to check in. We'll be able to check into how that goes. So once again, to the American Legions, if you can get some money over for a flag, or I don't know. I would not buy a flag because I don't know the size or whatever it is that they have regulations. So just get some money to them. Bobby said it costs about $100 for a flag. So if you can do that to them, that'd be great. And tell them the Republican Party sent them. So just give us a little plug for that too. But it's the right thing to do. It is absolutely the right thing to do. So Terran, thank you for coming in. Good to see you as always. And we'll be back in a bit with a little bit of some perspective here. Stay tuned. Maybe.
am Jay Drick, Chairman of the Board, Livingston County Commissioners. We are a constitutional and 2A county. We have the lowest tax millage rate and the lowest unemployment in the state. Livingston is rated one of the healthiest and safest counties in Michigan. Livingston has a balanced budget and an elite AAA bond rating, the highest possible. These 9 commissioners strive for smaller government. Our Republican values save taxpayers over $4 million in 2024 alone. We believe Elon copied us.
Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning is a fantastic new blend of herbs and vegetables made in Livingston County. Add a tablespoon to homemade breads, soups, stews, meat, poultry, vegetables, casseroles, sauces, and more. To order, email Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning at gmail.com or message the Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning Facebook page. It's time to divorce you or marry me chicken and take advantage of free delivery in and around Livingston County. Bunny's Fabulous Seasoning, the only seasoning you need.
Okay, once again, we're going to do a quick reading from our major sponsor, Jason Huntley from Premier Financial Planning in Brighton. The Exalted Christ offers resources to help you understand historic Christianity. Visit theexaltedchrist.com for articles, podcasts, and a video series exploring scripture and key historical topics. Get free resources today at www.theexaltedchrist.com. And I am back, and I am going to, last Thursday at the Republican Executive Committee meeting, I did a perspective. And that perspective, I got a lot of calls and a lot of discussion about it, and people liked it, and they appreciate it, but they said they weren't sure they completely understood it, because I did go fast. I didn't want to take up a lot of time at the meeting, so I had some people ask me if I could explain that deeper. So what I have done is created a PowerPoint, and it's basically called "Stay Thee Not at Home, Rather Hold Thy Nose and Vote." And it is why it is vital you vote for all Republican legislators, whether in the primary, whether you want to or not. So let's just talk about that. And to do that, let's talk about our state government. So our state government has the 2 big components to it. We have the executive branch, which is the governor, and we have the legislative branch. And the legislative branch has the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay. And it's those 3 chambers that things happen. So in the executive branch, you have your governor. Okay. The governor appoints all your department heads. So your Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Veterans, the Department of whatever, all the departments, licensing, agriculture, the EPA sort of thing, that environment, that's the word, the environmental, all that is appointed, all the heads. Now, every time we get a new governor, the old heads from the old governor go away and the new ones get replaced. And so they're going to have the same ideology as whoever the governor is. You'll recall the best example I can give of this being a problem is, you'll recall when Governor Whitmer was told during COVID by the Supreme Court that she did not have the power to rule. So what she did was she turned it right over to the Department of Health and Human Services, who declared it an emergency. And there was some loophole that said the department under a health emergency could then be in charge. So that's how we got shut down so badly. So the reason number one, you want a Republican governor right there. You want all the department heads to be run by Republicans. The other reason is the governor appoints a lieutenant governor. Okay. Technically they get elected, but it's always the who the governor wants. The lieutenant governor casts a tie-breaking vote in the Senate. There are 38 senators. There's a once in a while situation where it goes 19-19. It's not necessarily party lines. And so the lieutenant governor will come in and cast the tie-breaking vote. There were a lot of tough votes during the Snyder and Calley years that I remember. Lieutenant Governor Calley coming in to cast the Republican vote to break the tie, which made a lot of really good things happen. So that's why you want that's the reason, two reasons right there why you want to make sure you have a Republican governor. The next legislative branch is the Senate. And the Senate, the top dog in the Senate is the Senate Majority Leader. All the senators, there are 38 senators, as I said, and they all elect a Senate Majority Leader. That Senate Majority Leader has full control of the Senate. They sets the agenda. No policy goes anywhere. No budget gets nothing without the Senate Majority Leader. This is where the buck stops in the Senate. Okay. And all the senators, as I said, elect. The Senate Majority Leader, technically it's an election, but usually the Senate Majority Leader sort of teams up with somebody that they consider the floor leader. The floor leader is kind of in charge of the policy end of the legislature. They decide what legislation will be voted on. Not all legislation gets voted on. Under this floor leader, there's a bunch of policy committees: the Committee on Veterans Affairs, the Committee on Education, the Committee on Family and Human Services, that sort of thing. And that's where bills go first, into those committees. And if the committee chair doesn't like the bill, that committee dies right there. Now, who sets the committee chairs? Senate Majority Leader. They assign all the committee chairs. So that's why you want the Senate Majority Leader to always be Republican. So the committee chairs will decide what gets heard in committee, and then it either gets passed. Usually, if the committee chair wants it, it'll get passed on to the floor leader. Floor leader gets it. Does he want it on the floor or not? That's his call. If he doesn't like the bill, it dies right then and there. It dies either in committee or out of committee, but it'll die. If the floor leader likes it, he'll decide to put when and if to put it on the floor. Then the Senate will vote on it, and then it'll go over to the House from there. Okay, that's the policy side. Over here, we have the appropriations chair, and that's the funding end. There's a bunch of subcommittees under the appropriations too, but that's also education, health and human services, military and veterans, etc. But that's the funding of. So you technically have kind of corresponding committees. You have a committee on education policy, then you have a committee on education funding. That's the appropriations. The appropriations area doesn't set policy, and the policy doesn't set the budget, although they do work together. If the policy, in other words, if you want to create a policy that all schools must have X, and you're willing to fund it, you need to first get over to the Committee on Education and kind of work out a deal that they'll agree to fund it. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. But the appropriations chair has the say in all the funding. They approve the final budget and all the funding to things. Okay. So, and again, you've got subcommittee chairs there, and it's the same thing. If a bill comes, subcommittee chair doesn't want it, boom, it dies right then and there. So, all right, then we have the House. And the House, instead of the Senate Majority Leader, we have the Speaker. Speaker has the same situation. It's the full control. All right, they set that agenda. Same situation here, floor leader policy, and we'll decide what legislation be built on. And the appropriation chair, the same thing with the funding. Now in the House, there's 110 representatives. That covers, it's a much smaller district, and they run every 2 years, where the Senate has several bigger districts, entire counties plus, and then they run every 4 years. But this is but they're separate. They're completely separate entities. All right. But the same situation goes here. If you want to really want to be specific, right in here is an appropriations chair. That is our own Brighton. You can see this is one of the three most top dogs in this house. And that would be our own Representative Ann Boland. So we're real proud of her about that. So then we're over here. Now we have, this is the three chambers here, and this is your governor and your Senate and your House of Representatives in 23-24. As you can see, that's all blue. All right. When there is a complete trifecta, we call it here, or in the legislature, it's a complete Dem majority in 23-24. Therefore, Republicans had zero say in any policy or budget. So for anybody out there complaining that in 23 or 24, their legislators just dropped the ball, didn't do anything, blah, 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 that's why. They had nothing. They had no say. You have zero say. The Senate, the House of Representatives, and the governor were all Democrat, and they had the rule of the roost. There was nothing any Republican could do. The best they could do is come up with a good idea, partner with a Democrat, and hope it got done. So that's how it worked then. All right. That's why we Republicans fought so hard in 2024 to flip this so it looks like this. Okay. New ball game now. All right. Now we've got a blockage, because for a bill or a budget to pass, everybody must agree. All right. To gain a agreement, trades must be made. So no Democrat or no Republican right now, whether it was two reds and a blue or two blues and a red, they have no free pass. You have to horse trade here at this point. So if the Republicans want to let loose on this boys and girls bathroom and stuff, they're going to have to give up. They have to give in on something else. There's certain things they'll never give in. I doubt they'll ever give in on that. So they're going to stick to their guns on the boys and girls bathrooms, boys and girls sports, but they may lighten up on maybe giving the schools more money or another policy that they don't like, but they don't dislike as much as this one. But the same with the Democrats. If they want something done, they got to come to the Republicans and say, all right, we're going to do this. And we want this, but we'll give you this if you do this. And then the horse trading begins. So that has to happen. So when you see your Republican representative vote for something that is less than that they had to hold their nose to do, understand, don't start screaming rhino, don't start screaming recall, understand, to get something more important, they had to give up something less important. The only other option to that is to just be a blockage for 2 years and get nothing done, which serves nobody. Government works best when you can. Sometimes you have to just take baby steps. Sometimes it's better to move the needle a little bit just to get closer. But giving up something that maybe was just they didn't like, but it wasn't horrible. They're not going to give up the real solid principle. They're not going to agree to gun control, for example, most likely, but they would agree to, like I said, funding, lightening up on some other things. So right now that's what's going on. The budget's doing a bunch of horse trading, and so is the policy, because we now have a block. So now this is the demographics for Livingston County voters. It's rough. It's not precise. I did not measure. But if you look right now in Livingston County, we've got a big majority of Republicans and less of a majority. We have a minority of Democrats. So the Livingston County legislators here in our county can very conservatively vote without fear of repercussions, right? We can vote no on every single thing we hate or yes on every single thing we love. We don't have to worry about voting on a tough issue that we have to then come back and argue about. We're going to get supported on any conservative ballot that we pass or that they vote for. However, this is us in a swing district voter. Legislators in swing districts need to vote cautiously, and I'm explaining this for a reason. One wrong vote in a swing district could result in flipping the district next election, and it has many times. And so for this situation, we have situations where I remember a senator from the Jackson area back when I worked in the Senate. The senator in the Jackson area just could not get behind and voted against a reform package that reformed union wages. Well, in this situation, the Jackson area this senator was in was heavily unionized. And we had a Republican in there. And had he voted for that, there'd have been a good chance the next time we would have gotten a Democrat. And the problem with that, and this is the big thing, flipping the district, okay, if you flip the district, you end up here, right? You don't want to lose. What if it was a house and he flipped? Now all of a sudden we lost anymore. Remember what the most important thing that a Republican can vote for isn't gun control, never mind, Rob, it's not. It isn't gun control, it isn't abortion issues, it isn't free trade, it isn't a lot of things. The most important thing that a Republican can vote for, whether it's the Senate or the House, is the leader. After that, it sort of kind of takes care of itself. If you don't have a Republican majority, you won't have a leader. If you don't have the leader, be it the Senate majority leader or the speaker who sets the agenda, remember that. If you don't have that, you got nothing. So holding your nose and voting for, first of all, give a Republican that has to vote in this kind of district, give them a pass. If this Republican votes for something, it might have been iffy, even if he voted against it and it passed anyway, that happens. And it's called taking cover. It means I get to I know it's going to pass, but I get to go home and tell my constituents I voted against it, so I don't get replaced by a Democrat. We've had some very close majorities, right? So one loses, we lose one, and that's it. Now we've lost majority. And when you lose majority, you lose all control. I cannot state that hard enough. That's why I sort of went into that breakdown at the beginning. Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker, they set all the agenda. If you can get a Republican Speaker and a Republican Senate Majority Leader, you will not have to worry about what we did last year with all that nonsense, because they had Dems. And you see now what happens when you get a Democrat speaker and a Democrat majority leader, especially when we have a Democrat governor. All hell broke loose. It was awful those last 2 years. So it is so important. So it can flip. So this is often because Michigan is considered that purple state. This is what many people think Michigan demographics are. They're, it's Republicans and Democrats, and they go back and forth. Not so, because it swings back and forth between parties. We have a Republican governor, we have a Democrat governor, blah, 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 back and forth. And if you've noticed, Michigan does not elect far-right statewide candidates. Whether or not that's good news, bad news, or indifferent news, that is a fact. Go back, look at our governors, look at our senators, all right? Now, congressmen are different. They're district. They're not statewide. They're district-wide. But they don't elect far statewide candidates, all right? They don't on either side, far right ones. The far right blames this on rhinos. They say, well, it's because the rhinos don't support them. No, that's not it at all. So let's talk about this. Here we go. This is the actual, at least in my perspective, and I've been doing this a long time. So if I'm a little off here or there, it's not by much. This is the actual demographics, okay? You have the left, you have the right, and then you have this big group in the middle that are called swing voters, or independents they're called. But they're swing voters, all right? Swing voters, I don't have another slide. All right, so swing voters, let me tell you about them. They don't like extreme. This here, right here, is why you don't get extreme right candidates. And you won't get an extreme left either if you have they will pick the most moderate one they can. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. And the exception, or I guess outside influences that come in. Every once in a while, you'll get a ballot proposal that'll swing people. All right. It happened both in Governor Whitmer's first election and her second. Governor Whitmer got elected not because there were more independents that liked her than liked Bill Schuette, but because there was marijuana on the ballot, and marijuana brought this group right here. Had marijuana been legislated instead of brought to a ballot, this wouldn't have happened. I'm convinced of that. But the independents tend to, and we're not saying 100%, tend to want more social issues. They're a little bit lenient on social issues, even if they want a balanced budget. If they want the tough on crime and the balanced budget and the details, that's fine. But they're lots of them support abortion. They consider themselves right-leaning, but they support free choice or choice on abortion. They were okay with gay marriage. They were okay with marijuana. It's the social issues, but they want the tough stuff. They stood strong with 2A and whatnot, but this is the independent base, okay? And they don't like the far right, and they don't even like the far left. But in a case where you have the far right way over here, and then you have a candidate over here, the one that talks the craziest loses. And that's all I'm going to say about that. You do the math on that one. I think you can go back and figure it out on your own. But so we have this independent group here that they always make the decision. And I've talked to groups and I've talked to people before that pound their fist on the table. No, it's the rhinos. No, you don't really have. This is not what it looks like. It only looks like this because all we've ever had are Democrats and Republicans. But anybody that's ever worked has done a door knocking, right? You get the when you're knocking doors, you get a software package in your phone, and you look it up, and there's different ones that you can use, and it'll tell you the name the name going that you're going to go to the door. They're going to say how many voters are there, what's their names, and they're going to tell you, are they strong Republicans? Are they weak Republicans? Are they swing voters? And it's going to say whether they vote Republican or Democrat or both or whatever. So you can tailor your message that way. But this is not an accurate position, even though they go back and forth. This is the accurate position. And whichever side, this side or this side, garners the most of this group, they're going to win. And that is a fact, Jack. That's how it works. This does not exist, not in our state. We are a purple state. They call us a purple state for a reason. That's why we have and this, by the way, this used to be maybe this big once upon a time. And then as the candidates and the governments got further left and further right and further left and further right, this base grew. So they are very steady eddies. And they like less than extreme. They will go for the least extreme. Now, the most important thing I could tell you about this is we have on the right, we have some very strong patriots that I could not be prouder of, and I have a terrific amount of respect for a far right patriot. It's terrific. I consider myself extremely conservative. I would not consider myself a establishment, but I don't know that I'm super, super far right. I think I've just worked with too many people, and I just try to be collaborative and not peg myself, but I'm a diehard Republican, that's for sure. But the far right, they sometimes in a statewide race, especially, or, governor, senator, what ends up happening lots of times is you might have some kind of moderate Republicans and some far right Republicans running, and we've seen that happen. And so what happens is, because this base is so big, more often than not, you get the moderate Republican in a statewide race becomes the primary winner, right? Then you get the people over on this side here that are not happy about that. They would rather have a guy on their side or girl on their side, and I get that. However, and at that point, they begin to think, well, there's no difference between this person here and the person on the left they're running against. And so I'm staying home. And my teeth hurt when I hear that, because when that happens, again, it doesn't matter if this person here is right there on the other side, on this side of the E, and is so loosey-goosey, there it doesn't matter. If they've got an R next to their name, they do not stay home. Hold thy nose. You must go and vote. Because why? Why is it important? What's the most important? Because this person will vote right away for something. It will not be a policy. It will not be an appropriations. It'll be for, even in the White House is the same way, the speaker or the Senate majority leader. In this case, we're talking about senators. It'll be the Senate majority leader. If you don't have a majority, it doesn't matter. If you have a majority, it doesn't matter if this person is kind of a liberal Republican. It doesn't matter, because it's the Senate majority leader that sets the agenda, right? So I don't care who, if they have an R next to their name and they won the primary, get off your butt, go vote. We need that Senate. We need that majority, the word majority. Get that through your head. Majority. We need it. You cannot just stay home. You cannot just blow this off. I cannot tell you how important this is. Look at what happened. If you doubt it, look at what happened in Biden's first 2 years, in Obama's first 2 years, in the last 2 years we've had here. When they have all three, it's candy. It's being loose in a candy shop. So I cannot stress this enough. Just remember, it doesn't matter how loose this person is. Yes, would we like somebody more conservative? Of course. But it doesn't matter if we get somebody right smack in the middle. As long as they vote for the Senate majority leader, and as long as we've kept Senate, we have to keep majority. If we have majority, that R is going to vote for the R majority leader. And then after that, the rest of the stuff can be worked out. So, well, very informative. Thanks for the great explanation of how things work. Atta girl, Deb. Thanks, Rob. I hope everybody understands this a little bit better. It's huge to understand that, though, because I think a lot of people just think, well, there's no difference, and they might vote for a social issue that I don't approve of. They might, but if you have majority, then you have the majority leader, and that social issue might never show up. And that I cannot tell you. If the Republicans control the majority, it's up to them to decide what comes in front of you. And there's nothing that the minority can do about it. Just like last year, last 2 years, there was nothing we could do. So, all right, on that note, we're going to take another quick break, and then we're going to wrap up. See you in a minute.
This whole town could be red by the end of the day. If you feel alright, we could throw it and drive.
Okay, I'm back again to wrap things up, and I have with me Tyler Hammock, who is our my wonderful techie over there. He's figuring it out really well, and he's taking that pressure off me. And I want to thank Rob for teaching me, and therefore enabled so well that I could then show him, and also setting this up in such a way that somebody like me can make it through with minimal hiccups. So what'd you think, Tyler? Did you know Carolyn Henry or Terran before we got here tonight?
Carolyn Henry I've known a little bit just through party activities. I was throwing L into this back maybe 2000, 2004-ish. Dad just
Okay.
dropped me off at the office one day. It was like, here, have fun.
Okay.
Then I just kind of stuck around, and then through all that, I met Carolyn, and then kind of gotten to know her over the years.
Okay.
And Terran, I don't quite remember exactly when I started talking to him, but it was fairly recently, and that was through helping out just Bolin
Okay.
and Wolford.
All right. Well, how long? Tell every. I don't think anybody knows you. So when you talking to the camera instead of looking down, but so people can see your face. But what? Tell us, like, what's your Republican background? Where'd you come from? Like, how did you? What's your experience and what's your history with the party?
Well, starting out, like I said, my dad just kind of dropped me off like at the old Victor Center. This was back when Lana Tice was actually chair of the
Okay.
party.
All right.
And then he just dropped me at the office there. He's like, here, find something for him to do. And then I just stuck around ever since, started out making phone calls, kept on doing that for several years. Then I got a call from somebody else within the party who's like, have you ever heard of a precinct delegate before? Didn't know at the time, looked into that, figured that they play a crucial role picking party leadership, whatnot. They're the ones that kind of, I would say, build within before stuff gets out to, I guess, mainstream voters, I guess.
Okay. Well, I know we appreciate having you around. Tyler's a frequent poster on our Facebook pages, but he doesn't post his own stuff. He shares a lot of Tom Barrett stuff and a lot of stuff that's happening in Washington, and so that's and Representative Bolin. So it's all good stuff that he shares. So I appreciate that he stays on top of it. He's our
And before Barrett, I was, of course, throwing stuff up, and I got to know Mike Rogers when he was congressman.
Okay.
Through that, and then the transition from him to Mike Bishop, got to know both Mikes got to know him pretty well over the years.
Okay.
And
Well, great. So
I've
Go
known Lana since she was chair of the party. I've known her since she worked for Brighton, or was elected in Brighton Township, and
okay.
then helped her out to state legislature and then state senate.
Okay.
And then just recently, I was might have been the 2022 cycle. I think I was helping out AFP, Americans for Prosperity. I was field. I can't remember the exact
Field
title.
officer.
Field rep or something.
Yeah,
That way, I was just
representative,
basically we were the ones out there knocking on doors.
Well, terrific. Well, like I said, we're really glad to have you. So I want to talk just for a minute about the party, and then we're going to wrap up. But we have we're rocking and rolling in this party. We're going really well. We have our Thursday. We have right here at the Victory Center, we have our second Thursday workshop, and this particular workshop is called Political Communications, The Right Words Matter. And I respectfully and jokingly subtitle it Things to Post, Things Not to Post, and Things Never to Ask Larry Parsons to Vote For You. And I've actually gotten his permission to say that, so it's okay. But it is just, you can lose your message really quick if there's just certain things that it's not a real long workshop, but it's going to be in depth, and it's going to be, this is what we need to remember to do and what we not do in order to make in order to be able to get your message across, because we're not messaging to each other, right? We've already sold that. We need to message. Remember that big purple base in my slide? Those are the swing voters, and we'd like to swing them over our way. So we don't want to chase them away. So let's get our message nice and powerful. And then Saturday we have a float in the Pinckney Parade. That's at noon. Now, two ways to help there. Way one, we're going to be Wednesday at the old Pinckney fire station. We're going to be working there about 5 o'clock. We're going to finish the float. We started the float. Now we got to finish it. We could use some extra hands. It's not hard work. It's just busy work. It's a lot of taping and a lot of stapling and fixing that up. And we want to give a big old shout out to Commissioner Frank Sample for loaning us his trailer and his generator, and he's also towing it. And big shout out to my husband, Commissioner Jay Drick, who got in a bidding war with Commissioner with Representative Wolford, and ended up winning, and by donating $300 to ride in the front seat with Commissioner Sample as they pulled our float. So it's going to be fun. We can use walkers. Bring your dog. Your dog's friendly. Bring your dog. Walk with a dog. Wear something green. Come, and we're going to have a good time at this parade. But we need some Republican turnout, so please do that. Anybody has any questions about either of those two things? Chair at Livingston Republicans with an S, plural.com, and just email me, and I'll get right back to you, and we'll set you up. We have a precinct delegate meeting the following Thursday. I think that's the 20th. That is that's our great team of Sharon Lalio and Connie Robinson and Marcia Dix. We'll be talking to delegates. Let me, there's a term, their topic. Sorry about this. There's a topic. Let's see, where's she? The topic is ranked choice voting. And the speaker will be Garrett Wheat, who is the chief of staff to Senator Johnson, and he is he's very well known, or he's very well versed in this ranked choice voting. So come, it's going to be at Remax at 6:30 on Thursday the 20th. And then the fourth Thursday is our Republicans, so the fourth Thursday social, which has just been so fun. It's just so nice. It's come at 6 o'clock if you want to have dinner, and 7 to 9 if you just want to network. And it's just nice Republicans meeting other Republicans and talking. This one will be at the Grand River Brewery in Brighton on Main Street, over where I think Giannopolis used to be. So come on down to that. So anything else going on? We had a great first Thursday of the month. Every month is our Republican meeting at Remax. So at 7 o'clock it starts for the EC, and 7:30 for the general meeting. So anything anybody has an idea on or wants to talk about, or if you like these shows, please share them. Also, find wherever it is on this place that find wherever it is you're supposed to find wherever it is that you're supposed to subscribe. Please subscribe. That helps us a great deal, and then it makes it easy because you don't have to find it. You'll get an email saying that we're coming. And right there, the little Republicans, LivingstonRepublicans.com/join or / I guess it is. I'm never good at that. One of the slashes, join. Please become a member. We just approved some new membership rates, and we're giving discounts if a husband and wife both join. So things like that, just to kind of, we're making this party absolutely worth being part of. And any ideas you have for future episodes or whatever, please reach out. Let's see, Tyler, you got a comment there. Hi, Tyler, you're doing great.
So, I don't even like being on camera that much.
Well, you're doing good. You did just fine. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you tuning in tonight, and please share this podcast. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Good night.